With the latest changes in the Jehovah's Witnesses blood doctrine, there's one critical thinking question that nobody seems to be asking, and that is, can Jehovah's Witnesses now donate blood? Well, let's take a closer look at this and see exactly what really changed, along with a few facts that don't get talked about too often. Because I'm going to tell you, once you start connecting the dots, it becomes a much bigger issue than most people realize. The Watchtower often creates a doctrine to fix one problem, only to create another problem for themselves. So let's break this down. This is not just a policy discussion, because according to the medical journal, Australian Anaesthesia, an estimated 1,000 Jehovah's Witnesses die each year after refusing blood transfusions. And since this doctrine was introduced in 1945, that number may be as high as 100,000 lives lost. Many of you may remember This Awake magazine. In the May 22nd, 1994 issue of Awake, the Watchtower highlighted young Jehovah's Witnesses who lost their lives under the blood doctrine. It raises a difficult question: how many of those children might still be alive today if that doctrine had been different? We received a message from a viewer just 5 months ago. A close family member was diagnosed with a serious illness. Doctors said treatment involving blood could have extended his life, possibly even put him into remission, but because of his beliefs, he declined. He passed away just weeks later. The family was devastated, yet they were encouraged to view his death as an act of faith. Another example, right now there are Jehovah's Witnesses in hospital rooms still refusing blood. And why? Because they want to be loyal to Jehovah. So this does matter. The governing body has made the statement that now each Christian can decide for themselves how they want to use their blood, and that the Bible does not give any directions on the matter. Well, you see, that's a major shift. This means that the governing body has placed all decision-making in the hands of the individual and their doctor. So if a person can decide how their own blood is used, we're talking about three things here: donating blood, storing your own blood, and ultimately receiving blood. This is the outcome of that teaching. And another thing to consider is this: Jehovah's Witnesses can receive blood fractions. That's right. But those blood fractions, they come from donated blood. So witnesses have always been able to benefit from the donated blood of others, but they themselves cannot donate. You see the contradiction there? And now with the governing body saying it is entirely up to you and your doctor what you do with blood, this is going to be interesting to see. Now let's add another layer: the Hospital Liaison Committee. Jehovah's Witnesses are always told, consult with them before you have any major surgery. There are over 2,000 of these committees worldwide. Anywhere from 4 to 6 brothers as elders serve on these committees. Many of these individuals have no formal medical training, yet they're expected to sit across from doctors and hospital administrators and explain these new changes. Imagine sitting across from doctors who have been telling you for years, this saves lives. Can we at least try to save the person's own blood? And now you're back, saying something entirely different. 180-degree change. After years of saying this violated God's law, after years of refusing, now it's acceptable. That is going to be a difficult conversation. As one of Jehovah's Witnesses, you are given talking points on how to respond if someone raises this issue about people losing their life. You see, witnesses are trained to ask the following question: well, how do you know the person would have survived, even if they had taken blood? That's a question that many of us used to use, including myself. But you see, here's the problem with that line of reasoning. If a doctor says there are 3 tools available to try and save your loved one's life, who do you think would ever say, well, let's just try 2 of them? What most people would say, I want to try everything possible. So here's the critical thinking question: How can 11 men in the United States remove a life-saving option from 9 million people on Monday, and then later on Friday, say that it is acceptable to use that same option? We spoke to some active Jehovah's Witnesses about these changes. The responses were very telling. One said to me, "You know what? I'm not surprised by nothing they change anymore, but I'm not going nowhere. I'm not leaving the organization. I do my own thing. I don't need a lot of friends. I just keep to myself." Another said, "Even with everything changing, I'm still trusting in Jehovah." So even when the teachings shift, the response for so many is still to trust. But you see, here's the issue. For years, these teachings were not presented as opinions. They were presented as the truth, as direction from God, even to the point where people were willing to die for it. And now those same teachings are changing. So now the question becomes, if something is presented as coming from God, but later changes, what does that mean? Was it God or was it human interpretation? And this brings us to a very serious question. How many more people have to die before this teaching is fully removed? It reminds you of that scripture in Ephesians chapter 14 that warns about being tossed about by every wind of teaching and by the cunning of men. You know, that's not just a scripture, that's a warning about what happens when teachings don't stay consistent. It is as if Jehovah's Witnesses have come full circle. In the 1940s, the decision to take a transfusion was a personal decision between the person and his doctor. And then for decades, lives were affected, families were impacted. And other religions, they were condemned for allowing their members to make the personal decision. And now, after all this time, we're right back to where they started. In fact, right now, Jehovah's Witnesses around the world and former Jehovah's Witnesses, we're simply waiting for the second shoe to drop. So we're back to the original question. Can Jehovah's Witnesses now donate blood or not? At the end of the day, this isn't just about policy. It's about real people, real decisions, and real consequences. And when you step back and look at the full picture, there's a lot here that just doesn't sit right. If this got you thinking, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel and share this with someone who may need to hear it. This has been JT.